Hey, it's Audrey. Today I've got a demo, walkthrough of a recent set that I did that's just hardware focused. Everything goes straight into the audio interface, no extra effects. The individual pieces are relatively simple, but I really like how they all came together. And so I thought I'd walk you through how each part is set up, and then we'll listen to the whole thing together and so that you can enjoy the effect. So to start off with, I have a simple melody line on the zero coast that's actually left over from the techno set that I posted recently. I was in a little bit of a time crunch prepping for this, so I took what was already there and used it to piece together something that I could play. So I'll mute everything else. If you just listen to the zero coast, you can hear it's just that repeated notes, series of notes. We're using slope with cycle to add an LFO that is normalized to multiply here. So we can change the impact of it by turning up multiply and turning it back down again. Similarly, the overtone will do a lot to shape the sound of the line as it continues. And that's also what's allowing us to have that change in timbre where it becomes sort of more muted and you hear more of that harmonic resonance going back and forth. I'm also on the zero control, just doing a little bit of shaping of the envelope. You can see that there's not a big difference here. I think actually I have basically the time about the same on everything. And with these settings, you kind of have to play around with speed if you want to do much. I'll turn a couple of them back. And we can see if you adjust speed, it actually affects the kind of pluckiness of the whole thing. So the higher, when it's externally clocked like this, the higher speed is, the more that time will impact things. And I guess to make it a fair comparison, we'll leave strength about where it was. So in this particular case, even though I have these set affecting the really the contour here, the gate, overall envelope gate, I just kind of set speed to where I like the effect and left it there. So then the next layer of this is the Strega, which is really just being used for effects. To add a little bit more resonance. And you can hear that's all the Strega as an effect box and nothing coming straight from the zero coast. But we'll bring that back to something a little bit more subtle. Just hear how that comes in and out a little bit zingier and a little bit more subtle. And just having that shaping of the timbre really does a lot to make it so that you can play a simple melodic section like this and have it not become grating very quickly. It can kind of pull in and out of the mix of the other sounds and still give it a lot of dimension. So the next thing that I added was the DFAM. And we'll bring all that down to just pretty low. And let's listen to this. So here what I've done is we have a clock coming from the metronome. We're at 104 BPM. And then I've patched pitch up to VCO decay. VCO decay. And that sometimes has really dramatic effects on the sound of the DFAM. Other times it just gives it a little subtle nudge. And then I've also patched velocity here to, I think, VCF decay, yeah, so the filter decay. Again, this is something where you can really shape different sounds in the DFAM. So I keep the knobs fairly low when I'm doing this, so that then if I want to like really crank it up, I have some room to go. I also patched VCF EG envelope gate to the noise level, and noise level is turned all the way down by default. So that way I have a little bit of control over the overall crunchiness, and I can also manually adjust noise VCF mod. And then, let's see, what else do we have? And then I'm using the DFAM to clock the Subharmonicon, which we'll get to in a minute. But let's just listen to this part. And you can hear, you can really swing it back and forth from that crunchy metallic sound. Something that sounds a little bit more like you're hitting like a wood block, or has that more muted resonance to it. And I mean, speaking of resonance, we also have resonance cranked up just a little bit. In fact, we can bring the cutoff and the resonance back to the same spot if we want, and then turn up resonance to also really make some big shifts in the sound, while keeping with this same patch. So obviously changing velocity is going to change the pattern, and also the filter, like it's patched to. And then changing pitch will also affect the VCO decay. So again, not a really complex pattern. The patching is just there to give things a little bit more dynamic shape. As I was playing the set, I could really just play around with the timbre, the resonance of it, all of those kinds of things. And it's always worth playing around with the negative envelope generator settings. Again, if you want to give a section like really a lot of different contrast. But we'll leave it kind of dialed in about there. Bring this back down. Just soften it a little bit so it blends in with everything else. So let's bring the volume of that down. And and then we'll listen to what's going on with the subharmonicon. So here I also have the resonance turned up and the cutoff fairly low. And cutoff is patched to sequence 2, which has a pretty slow change. We are at, I think, I can never read it when it's on 5 octaves here, and then an 8-step scale. So that means that when these are similar, they're only going to be just a couple of notes apart, you know, but it's enough to really help shape that cutoff, like having an LFO here, which unfortunately they didn't bake into either of these two. You have to add the mother 32 in order to get an LFO within like Moog's semi-modular systems. And right now I have all of the volumes turned up about the same, but we'll pull some of these back. Let's just listen to the first oscillator. And I've got these tuned to, I think this ends up being middle C on both of those. Once in a while I remember to take a tuner to it and check, but anyhow, it's not a bad starting point, you know, to set the oscillators to the same thing and then start playing around with it. And then if you want, you can do like an octave shift between them, or maybe a fifth, you know, to try to create different chords and more complex harmonic systems. I'll turn off the cutoff. Turn up the cutoff too, so we can hear a little bit more. So again, you can hear just nice little thing. And because the envelope generator is on here, both sequences trigger the envelope. Let's just hear that with the zero coast. So you can hear like this, we have sort of two interlocking melodies. We can even bring in the second oscillator. So even though the zero coast is in kind of a mid treble range, it's acting structurally like a bass line would, you know, in terms of like adding pattern and that like bottom of the chord or the structure. But sometimes with sets like this, instead of having like drums, bass, chords, melody, I let other things kind of take those roles in the structure, but not in the same pitch area, or not, you know, in some other kind of way to layer them. And so here with, again, we'll just listen to the DFAM for a minute with it. So this provides the drum texture, but obviously you can hear we're in a lower register. And that's something that's really important to remember when you're working with noise, that even if it's low enough that you're not registering it as like a melodic or harmonic kind of component, it still has pitch, and so the pitch needs to fit with everything else. Unless you're going for just outright dissonance. You need those things to come together so that it feels like you're building on top of it, right? Instead of adding just a disconnected other area. And then, because if you think of it that way, you can really crank up the noisiness of this. Okay, maybe that's a lot. But you know, you can do that and it won't sound, again, like it's breaking up the structure of what you're hearing. So getting back to the Subharmonicon. Pull those out again. The beauty of the Subharmonicon, obviously, is that you can bring in these sub-oscillators. And we're using 2 of the rhythm generators to get that polyrhythm effect. While sequence 2 is just turned all the way to the left, so it produces the slowest pattern. It's the equivalent of having like a whole note in there amongst the quarters and eighths and so on. And I assigned sequence 2 to the sub-oscillators here as well. So if we were to just listen to one of those, turn these back a little bit. You can hear how that makes it kind of get down in that plunky bass register before coming back up again. So it's another way that we're adding depth to the sound. And you can do a lot of really interesting things just by changing the volume here. So that can stand on its own, you know, and bring the, say we bring the DFAM way down, so that it's just a kind of a gentle tap. All this room to work. But personally, I love that kind of underwater feel that you get when the cutoff is just suddenly cut, you know? So again, simple things, right? We only have a 4-step sequencer for sequencer 1 and 2 here. This is 8 steps, that's 8 steps. But you start layering them together and you get these different overlapping patterns, different dimensions to it, and things will weave in and out of each other. And so this was really fun to play. You know, it was just an hour set. But even though I sometimes worry about running out of music, you know, like, what if, what if I think, you know, run out of things that I can think of here? This really gave me enough to work with that I could, you know, build up one part and then sort of bring it back, build up another part, and let different things take center stage over the course of the set, you know, and have parts that I can change just a little bit here and a little bit there that really shape the overall sound. So yeah, that's the setup. I'm going to go ahead and kind of bring everything back in, play it for a little bit, and yeah, just let that play us out. So enjoy the rest of the music, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.